because who really knows what Clemson is going to be this year? Because Dabo Swinney, we know that he went toe to toe with Nick Saban, right, in the 2010 decade, won a couple of national championships. But since NIL and transfer portal has been introduced, he's been a little bit slower to adjust, and frankly hasn't really adjusted to the modern age of college football. Uh, they will have a new starting quarterback this year. No Cade Klubnik. He's off to the NFL as a member of the New York Jets. So it's either going to be Chris Vizina or Tate Reynolds. Now, both of these guys were really highly thought of coming out of high school, don't have much experience at the collegiate level. So we're going to have to see there. Again, question mark, not necessarily weakness, just a question mark at this point in time. They do have one of the tougher ACC schedules because this is the return game where they hosted LSU last year in their Death Valley. Now they're going to the other Death Valley and they're playing LSU in week 1. I'm going to talk about Cal a little bit later, but they're on the road at Cal in week 4. Now, I have these conversations, regardless of if it's Cal, if it's Stanford, if you have a team from the Atlantic coast going to the Pacific coast for a game, crossing 3 time zones, travel is a factor. So I do count that when I'm looking at a team's schedule and I see that they're having to travel coast to coast. I do take that into consideration. So they're at Cal in week 4. They have Miami the next week at home. So they go from, traveling out to Berkeley, going back to Clemson, hosting what I think to be a preseason national championship contender. They have Virginia Tech, year 1 of James Franklin on October 24th. And obviously they end the year with South Carolina. South Carolina is also another one of those teams we don't really know what to expect because they have 2 of the best players in college football, one at quarterback in Lenore Sellers and another guy coming off the edge in Dylan Stewart. And they also have a freak of an athlete outside at wide receiver in Nick Harbor. So that could also be a fun game. So with Clemson, this is what I wanted to talk about because when you think of the future of Dabo Swinney at Clemson, I truly believe that for Clemson, their best opportunity to compete in this new day and age of college football, right? We talk about the NIL, we talk about the transfer portal all the time, right? I believe last year was their best opportunity to compete in the modern age. And here's why I say that. You look at last year's team, right, led by Cade Klubnik and all the returners that they had, not only on the offensive side of the ball, and they had one of the better wide receiving cores as well, but you flip over to the defense, they had lots of seniors in there. They had lots of juniors, lots of guys that were drafted in the NFL draft, this past draft. A lot of those guys were there for 3 or 4 years, and they were older, and they were experienced, and they were highly recruited coming out of high school. Well, if you look at Clemson's high school recruiting, because remember, Dabo Swinney's not big into the portal. He'll take maybe 2 or 3 guys each portal cycle, but he's going to rely on high school recruiting, which, to be honest, I don't fault Dabo Swinney for. I believe high school recruiting is the lifeblood of the sport, and then you're supposed to supplement with guys from the transfer portal. So if you take a team like Clemson, who is going to rely on high school recruiting, look at what they did this last recruiting cycle for high school recruiting. They ranked 21st nationally. This is according to On3. In 2025, they were slightly worse. They finished 23rd. Well, the blue chip ratio compared to a lot of these other teams like Georgia, like Ohio State, like Oregon, is a lot lower. So if you don't have the experience, right, they're going to have an inexperienced quarterback. If you don't have the inexperience and you don't have the same blue chip ratio as some of these other teams, I just do not see a world in which Clemson is going to be back to national championship status, or maybe even, I might go as far to say, playoff contention. I just don't see it. I go through their schedule, and they went 7-5 last year. A lot of us thought that Clemson should have been a playoff contender last year. They weren't. Finished 7-5 in the regular season, lost the bowl game to Penn State. I look at their schedule this year and I just think this is a 6-6 team. This might even be a 7-5 team if they go above expectations. But I just don't see them being able to contend for the ACC this year. Now, anything can happen because we do know it's Miami and everybody else. They could maybe jump SMU. They can maybe jump Louisville. They can maybe jump Virginia Tech. I don't know. But it's just hard for me to see. I really thought Clemson's best opportunity to compete in this new landscape was last year.